Hello everyone and welcome to Tech with Harshaji. This is part 2 of the series of videos wherein we'll be trying to build the eShopOnContainers application using Spring Boot. If you haven't watched the introductory video, please use the info button above to watch the video. In this video, we are going to work on creating the project setup required for eShopOnContainers. We will discuss interservice communication in microservices and we'll understand what is EventBus, and we will also lay the foundation required for building EventBus component. Without waiting further, let's dive right in. First thing we'll do is create a new folder called Spring Boot eShopOnContainers with a folder called src inside it. We will start our project by creating parent BROM project. This will help us in ensuring that our dependencies across all our projects can be maintained from a single place. The project is loaded. Now I'll get rid of the unnecessary things and change the packaging type to POM. Next thing we are going to do is creating the project setup for EventBus. But before that, let's first try to understand how microservices communicate with each other. This diagram is taken from a Microsoft article and it shows different patterns of how microservices communicate with each other. In the first pattern, we see a client application making a synchronous HTTP request to one microservice, which is in turn making another synchronous request to another microservice, and so on. The problem with this pattern is the more number of dependencies you have between these microservices, the less response time we get for the client application. In the second pattern, the client starts with the same synchronous HTTP request to the first microservice, but the first microservice, instead of making a synchronous HTTP request to the next microservice, instead publish a message to the broker and return an ACK response back to the client. Now, the broker ensures that the publisher message is delivered to the appropriate recipient services. The advantages we get from this pattern are this allows loose coupling between the microservices and also allows processing to happen in an asynchronous manner. The third one is a variation of pattern 2. Instead of using a message broker, it uses HTTP for notifying other microservices and uses HTTP polling to read the responses back. The problem with this is it's a little harder to implement when compared to the other two patterns and takes a lot of additional efforts during implementation. Now let's shift our focus to understanding what is EventBus. An EventBus is a custom component which allows publish-subscribe style communication between microservices without requiring the components to be explicitly aware of each other. Let's try to understand that with an example. In this diagram, you're seeing three microservices, microservice A, B, and C, and these three services are not aware of each other. Now, when microservice A publishes an event to the EventBus, it's EventBus' responsibility to ensure that that respective event gets broadcasted to all the subscribed microservices. Let me explain the same using a concrete example this time. In this slide, we can see three microservices: catalog microservice, basket microservice, and some other microservice, each of them maintaining their own database. Let's assume a use case wherein the price of a product needs to be updated. This behind the scenes should update all the users baskets which are having that product. In a monolith application, this is simple and straightforward as we can update both the product and the cart tables directly because they exist in the same database. In the microservice world, this cannot be done in the same manner as each and every microservice will own its own database and it will not provide access to the DB for other microservices. Let's see how we can achieve this in microservices using the EventBus component we are going to build. Firstly, the basket microservice has to be notified whenever the price of any product gets updated. We can do this by subscribing to the price updated event using the EventBus component. Once it receives the event, it is its responsibility to do whatever it wants to do. In our case, it has to find all users basket with this product and update the price. Since the basket microservice has already subscribed to this event, it gets notified about this event. Now it's basket microservice responsibility to ensure that all the baskets with this specific product can be updated. Now the next thing is whenever the catalog microservice has to update the price of a product, along with updating the price in the database, it also has to publish the price updated event through the EventBus component. So far we talked about EventBus as a component with which we can publish an event and subscribe to an event. First of all, let's first try to understand what is an event and how does the subscriber gets notified about this event and how it can act on that event. Enough theory, I'll explain these things as we code. So let's continue our work on the project setup. I switch to Windows Explorer. I'll create a new folder inside source directory and let me rename that directory as building blocks. I'll also create another directory named EventBus over here. We'll be creating all our EventBus related projects inside this folder. Now for the microservices, let me navigate back to the source directory. I'll create a new folder called services over here. And I'll create different folders for different microservices. We'll be creating these microservices in their respective folders. I'll now switch back to VS Code and we'll create the projects for EventBus and the other three microservices. We'll start with EventBus first. Let me add a new project. I'll select springboot from here, Maven, version as 3.3, language as Java, group ID as com.eShopOnContainers, and artifact as EventBus, packaging type jar, Java version 17, no dependencies, and I'll add this under building blocks, EventBus, and I'll add it here. Let me also add it to the workspace. Okay, this is added. In the meanwhile, I'll add other projects for the other three microservices. Again, Spring Boot, Maven project 3.3, Java, com.eShopOnContainers, catalog API, jar 17. Let me select the dependencies this time. We'll select Spring Web, we'll select Lombok, we'll select DevTools. Yeah, I think that should be fine for now. And let me add it under services. catalog. And let me also add this to the workspace. Now let me add one more for basket. And I'll add this under basket. And the final one, and I'll add it under again ordering. I will now change the parent of all of these projects so that the dependency version of all of these projects can be maintained in one central location. Let me open EventBus form. I'll change this to base form, and the version is, sorry, I should change it here. eShopOnContainers, and the artifact is base form. The version should be 0.0.0.1. Let me do the same for the other projects as well. eShopOnContainers, base form, version is 0.0.1. Let me do it for basket. Now the final one. All of them are saved now. We should be good with the project setup for now. Let's now try to answer what is an event. An event in general represents an activity that introduces a change in the state of a system. In eShopOnContainers, we are going to use the term integration event, as we'll be using this to integrate with other microservices. Now, how do we represent an event? We can use a class to represent an event and use its member variables to capture the data. In our earlier example, for product price changed event, the class can be named as product price changed, but the member variables that can be captured can be things like the product ID, what is the old price, what is the new price, and so on. Now, how do we identify an integration event from other classes? We can do this by creating a base class for an integration event, and all the classes basically which are supposed to be integration events, they can extend that base class. So if you look at this slide, I have a base class called integration event. It has basically these member variables for ID and creation date. the ID can be used to represent uh, an integration uh, event uniquely, and the creation date can be used to identify when this event occurred. Now we'll try to understand what is an event handler. An event handler is a piece of code designed to respond to an event. Since we are going to use it to handle only integration events, we can call it integration event handler. Now, similar to how we defined a base class for our integration event, for our event handler also, we have to come up with a base contract. We can do that using this interface definition. It shows a method named handle, accepting an integration event as a parameter. To explain it further, we will revisit our earlier example. If you look at this slide, on the left, we see the catalog system, and on the right, we see the basket system. Since the catalog system is responsible for publishing that integration event, it indicates that integration event by extending our base class, which is integration event. So we can see the product price changed integration event, extending the integration event base class. Now the basket system is responsible for acting on top of that integration event. It does so by implementing our integration event handler. Along with that, it specifies that it acts on top of integration event by taking in that generic integration event. So if you see here, this parameter takes that integration event, which in our case is the price changed integration event. The last thing we need to discuss is the EventBus component itself. If you look at this slide, it displays three methods. The first method, publish, takes in an integration event as a parameter and is responsible for publishing that integration event. The second method, subscribe, takes in two parameters. The first is the type of integration event which it has to subscribe to, and the second is the event handler type, which is responsible for handling that integration event. The last method, unsubscribe, is also similar to subscribe method and takes in the same set of parameters. I'll now switch to VS Code and define these contracts. First thing I'll do is I'll get rid of this event-based application, as this is just its library that we are going to use. We don't need this. I'll define a new package. And inside this, I'll define my integration event base class. I'll try to add Lombok getter to it. Let me check base form if Lombok is included. It's not included. Let me go ahead and add that dependency here. Save that. Let's see whether I'm getting this. Yeah. I'm defining a member called ID for uniquely identifying my integration event. And I'm defining another member for identifying when the event got created. Let me also create a default constructor. This should be from date. Yeah, I think that should work. The next thing I'll define is I'll define that integration event handler. For that, I'll create a new package called abstractions. and I'll define that inside that. Inside this, I'll now define a new package for, sorry, I'll define a new class over here for integration event handler. Should provide a method for handling that event. So running a method since it is taking that generic type, I have to now mark this as integration event. Let me import this. The next thing I should define is the EventBus interface itself. Let me go ahead and define that. So it should accept 3 methods. Should also define methods for subscribing and unsubscribing. Let me define them as well. So which is class of T, which is the next one is class of TH. So if I define that here, T should extend integration event and TH should extend integration event handler of T. Should add one more. Unsubscribe also, it's the same. The method should change to unsubscribe. With that, we are now done defining the contract for our EventBus component, and in the next video, we'll be implementing this contract leveraging RabbitMQ as the message broker. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you like the video, please don't forget to click the like button, subscribe and share it. See you next time and happy coding.